Good day, everyone. My name is Rebecca Lilly with the International Association for Energy Economics. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar entitled Value of Power to Gas as a Flexibility Option in Integrated Electricity and Hydrogen Markets. We are grateful to Machiel Mulder and Xinyu Li from the University of Groningen for today's timely discussion. First, a little bit about the International Association for Energy Economics. We are the largest association specializing in the field of energy economics and provide a forum for the exchange of ideas, experience, and issues among professionals interested in the field. The organization produces 2 professional journals, a newsletter, and holds conferences and virtual presentations, along with a host of other products and services that you can find at our website at www.iaee.org. If you're not already a member of the association, we welcome you to join. A few housekeeping matters in regard to today's webinar before I hand things over to our speakers. First, this webinar is being recorded for those that cannot participate in today's live event. If you have questions for the panelists, please click the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom window and type your question. We've allocated time to read and answer them. And now I would like to introduce you to our moderator and presenter, Dr. Machiel Mulder, Professor of Energy Economics and Director of the Center for Energy Economics Research at the University of Groningen. Machiel, over to you.
Thank you. Very good day to all of you. I'm really pleased that you all have joined to this session to discuss with us the issue of the value of power to gas as a flexibility option in integrated hydrogen electricity markets. I will now share my screen. So this research is based on a joint work with also international partners. It's part of International Superpower to Gas project, and our part is funded by the Dutch Scientific Association, NWO. And today I'm going to present together with my colleague, Xinyu Li, who is a postdoc researcher in my team. And the outline of our presentation is that I will briefly introduce the role of hydrogen in energy transition policies, really short, introduce to you the research questions we would like to discuss. And then Xinyu will take over by providing the results of our paper, which is also published in Applied Energy, on the value of power to gas to provide flexibility to electricity markets. And Xinyu will discuss the theoretical concepts, introduce our model, which we have developed, and then show the results, and then going into the answer to the research questions, which I will introduce in a minute. And in the third part, we will go into the issue of international spillover effects of hydrogen policies, which is also a kind of flexibility. The second part on the value of power to gas to provide flexibility to electricity markets is based on finished research, which is published. The last one is still work in progress. So we also hope to receive some useful feedback. So we also would like to have some discussions, so please feel free to use the Q&A after each session. So after the background, the second presentation, second part, and the third part, you will have a break, look at the Q&As, and maybe also in between, you will have a look. So please feel free to ask your questions. So what is the background? Just one sentence. Many countries in Europe, European Commission, governments from Germany, Netherlands, other countries, they have formulated really ambitious targets for hydrogen. They want to be really active in the hydrogen industry. And hydrogen is more and more seen as the alternative energy carrier to reduce carbon emissions, because it can be used in different ways. It can be used as a fuel, as heat and feedstock. So there are many potential usages of hydrogen. And that's why it's seen as really valuable energy carrier to realize the carbon emission targets. From an economic perspective, you can also say that power to gas to make hydrogen based on electricity may provide large flexibility to systems to reduce carbon emissions. And these types of flexibility can be distinguished in different groups. Power to gas can provide flexibility to the electricity markets, which may be called time flexibility, which means that you shift the consumption and supply of electricity within time. And by using electricity to make hydrogen when the electricity price is really low, maybe due to a really high supply of electricity by renewables, or to generate electricity by using hydrogen when electricity price is really high. So this is one example of providing flexibility to electricity markets. Another type of flexibility is flexibility offered to end users of energy, which is called the end use flexibility. And this enables other energy users in industry, households, transport to replace their fossil fuels by a non-zero energy carrier. And the third type of flexibility is flexibility offered to countries, which can be called locational flexibility. By importing hydrogen, they can also may realize the national carbon objectives. So 3 types of flexibility which can be offered by power to gas. And because of these potential benefits of power to gas, many countries want to promote power to gas business because there seems to be a huge economic value. And that is precisely the question we want to ask. What is the economic value of hydrogen to provide these types of flexibility? So that is the key research question of our research. What is the economic value of flexibility of power to gas in a system with high shares of renewables? In order to answer this question, we have developed a simulation model based on integrated hydrogen and electricity markets. And we use this model to estimate the welfare effects of adding power to gas to a system, and also by adding hydrogen demand from other industries to the system, and to see what happens with the overall welfare and what happens with the distribution of welfare. Who benefits and who face a loss in welfare? So first, we will analyze the potential impact of power to gas in electricity markets with high shares of renewables without any interaction with an external demand for hydrogen. So in this part of research, we only focus on the time flexibility. And then we add external demands by integrating 2 different markets, electricity and hydrogen markets, which implies that electrolyzer owners, hydrogen producers for electrolysis, have 2 options. They can either use hydrogen to supply flexibility to the electricity market or electricity grid, or they can supply hydrogen to other users. So they seem to compete. And that's what we analyze in this second question. And finally, we add more countries. So the basic model is only 2 countries, but in the last step, we add more countries, and then we look at international spillover effects of individual national policies to promote hydrogen, for instance, by giving subsidies to producers or subsidies to consumers, and then determine what are the overall welfare effects, but also what is the distribution of welfare among all participants in the different countries. So this is the outline of our work and also of this presentation. And as I already have said, the first, next, and the second question are based on our article which is published in Applied Energy. The final one is still work in progress. Now I would like to hand over to my colleague Xinyu for starting with the first part of our presentation.
Okay, thank you, Machiel, and thank you everyone for participating in this seminar. Okay, this part is about the value of power to gas to provide flexibility. The first thing we want to understand, like, how can power to gas provide flexibility to the electricity market? And basically, if you look at the supply and demand in this market, during off-peak demand, more electricity demand from power to gas. During peak demand, more supply from power to gas, basically here, hydrogen used to generate electricity. And in this way, power to gas can flatten the price duration curve. So if you compare the price duration curve with power to gas without power to gas, you will see the red line is flatter than before. Okay, then how do we measure value of flexibility? And flexibility can be measured by changes in welfare. And as we know, if you add power to gas to the system, the electricity price will be different. In this way, consumer supplies of electricity and the producer supplies of electricity will be different. And if the electricity market is integrated with hydrogen market, and the price change of electricity also influence the hydrogen price. And in this way, also influence the consumer supplies and the producer supplies of hydrogen. In order to determine value of flexibility of power to gas, we estimate welfare effects of adding power to gas to the system. The expected welfare effects related to expected change in price duration curve. First, if you have more renewable in the system, and we will see a steeper price duration curve for electricity. If we add power to gas to the system, and we will see that power to gas can flatten the price duration curve of electricity. And if we have external hydrogen demand connected to the electricity market, power to gas cannot flatten the price duration curve too much because other sectors compete for hydrogen. We estimate these effects by simulating integrated electricity and hydrogen markets calibrated on the Dutch market. Okay, now we talk about the model setup. First, we have like different markets. Electrolyzer connecting electricity market to hydrogen market. And the hydrogen fired power plant also connect this back. In addition, hydrogen storage buy hydrogen at a lower price, selling that at high price. For electricity market, we have gas-fired power plant, renewable, and international traders, and also have consumers. And for hydrogen market, we have other type of producer, SMR, as a steam methane reforming hydrogen producer. Also, we have consumers for hydrogen. And we also introduce a certificates market for electricity and hydrogen. For electricity certificates, we have supplier is a renewable producer, also have consumers. And in addition, we have electrolyzer using green certificate of electricity to produce green hydrogen certificate. We also have other type of consumer for green hydrogen certificate. And in this system, notice gas price and the carbon price are exogenously given. So we take the data of the year 2019 as an input. Okay, how do we solve the model? So basically in this model, we have different market participants, producers, consumers in all markets. They maximize their profits and the utilities to derive their supply and demand functions. And then we find the equilibrium price by letting the supply equal demand in each market. And price of gas and the carbon are exogenously given. And the price of electricity, hydrogen, and the green certificate for electricity and hydrogen are endogenously solved. We look at the different scenarios and in 2 dimensions. The first dimension in terms of capacity of power to gas. We have 3 scenarios. There's no power to gas, low power to gas, high power to gas. So low power to gas will mean that we have some installed capacity for electrolyzer, hydrogen fired power plant, and storage. And high power to gas is 5 times of the low capacity. In terms of industrial hydrogen demand, we also have 3 situations. There's no such a demand, there's a low demand and a high demand. And combine these 2 dimensions together, we have first thing business as usual. The case, there's no power to gas added. And if there's no industrial hydrogen demand, then we have the situation, no connection between power to gas and hydrogen market. But if there's an industrial hydrogen demand and also power to gas added, and then we will have integrated market between electricity and hydrogen markets. And our paper focuses on the integrated markets. Okay, first we want to show our model really presents the reality well. So what we do here, we compare our model's results of the price duration curve with the real data in the Netherlands in the year of 2019. And we can see that our model results quite close to the reality. In this sense, we see our model represent well.
And maybe to add, we choose 2019 instead of 2020 because prices in 2020 were already quite unusual, affected by COVID.
Yeah, okay.
Just an addition. Yeah.
Okay, then now we show you model results. First, we want to know what's the impact of renewables on price volatility. If you look at this graph, you notice, okay, the green line is low renewable, it's some kind of current situation, and the high renewable is the red line. So if you introduce more renewable to the system, you will see the electricity price is more volatile, then you will have a steeper price duration curve.
Maybe to add, high renewables is based on the Dutch policy objectives for expanding renewable capacity.
Yeah.
So this would happen if nothing would change, only the renewable capacity.
Okay, then we look at what's the impact of power gas on price volatility. And here we look at the price duration curve again. And you look at the three different colors of the price duration curve. Notice if there's more power to gas capacity, there will be lower number of hours with very high prices and also less hours with very low prices. So power to gas flatten the price duration curve. Now we look at the utilization of power to gas. And if you look at the low power to gas and high power to gas scenario, you notice the capacity factor are very low. And the reason for that is like a hydrogen storage operator only buys hydrogen at a price below the marginal cost of SMR. So in this sense, the hydrogen is not stored too much. And so if you vary the capacity of power to gas, it doesn't change the utilization of hydrogen in the system. In this way, the capacity factor is not so high. It's almost the same in both scenarios. Now we look at the welfare impact of power to gas. And you see that the overall welfare effect is negative, but there are winners and losers. If you look at winners, basically renewable producers are winners. Also electricity consumers benefit from that. And because of their few hours of high prices of electricity, on average, the electricity price is lower than before. Of course, there are also losers, and that include gas-fired power plants because there's a few hours of high prices, so they lose profit. Also like international traders for electricity because of the arbitrage room right now smaller.
Maybe just to add that these welfare effects are expressed as a difference towards the business as usual scenario. So it is a change in welfare.
Yeah. Okay, next question. What if we add sector couplings? So basically, if we connect hydrogen market with electricity market, and here we focus on the high demand for hydrogen, and high demand, we mean that at price 45 euro per megawatt hour, the demand level will be 2,500 megawatt hour. Okay, first, we look at the impact of power to gas on electricity price duration curve. And here you can see the comparison between without power to gas with power to gas, but right now we have like high installed power to gas. We look at without a sector coupling, with sector coupling. You can see that the red line, without a sector coupling, power to gas can flatten the price duration curve a lot. But if you have sector coupling for high price periods, power to gas effect is smaller than before. But for the low price period, the price will be higher than before. So in this way, you can imagine if you have like integration between hydrogen and electricity market, and electricity consumer may suffer from that. So this means that with a high external demand for hydrogen, value of power to gas for providing time flexibility may reduce. Now we look at how does power to gas influence hydrogen prices. And look at the price duration curve of hydrogen again. And we notice with high capacity, power to gas reduce hydrogen price significantly, but with low power to gas capacity, power to gas alone cannot meet the high hydrogen demand. Therefore, SMR is still the price setter. So you rarely see the price difference between no power to gas and with a low power to gas. Now, how the power to gas is used in the system? If you compare the capacity factor with before no sector couplings, you notice that the capacity factor is higher than before. And the operation hours is about 4,000 hours per year. But if you look at the hydrogen fired power plant, the capacity factor is almost the same as no sector coupling. And also the operating hour very low. The reason is right now, high hydrogen price driven by high hydrogen demand from the industry. So the hydrogen fired power plant cannot afford so high price to operate when electricity price very high. Now we look at the welfare impacts of power to gas. And similarly, there will be winners and losers. The winners include renewable producers because of few hours of low prices, and hydrogen consumers because of few hours of high prices. And the losers include gas-fired power plant, also international trader. And the reason for that, for gas-fired power plant, you have a few hours of high prices, and importers, because of a smaller arbitrage room, pay attention to electricity consumers. They suffer a lot right now because of a high price on average. The overall welfare effect depends on the size of power to gas. But notice in the previous slides, you see that with a small capacity for power to gas, you probably will have a positive welfare effect. But this welfare effect ignores one important thing, is the implicit cost of promoting hydrogen. And the current market condition, hydrogen is more expensive than gas. Government use a lot of policies to promote hydrogen. For example, a tax on gas or give a subsidy to hydrogen producer or consumers. Then consumers shift from cheap gas to expensive hydrogen, which leads to a welfare loss. When this kind of implicit welfare loss is taken into account, the overall welfare effect of power to gas is lower than its cost, even in the scenario we showed before. So we want to know, okay, which factors can make power to gas break even when such implicit welfare loss is counted. There are two factors we consider. First is the carbon price. And this graph shows that the break-even carbon price for installed power to gas. If you look at the low power to gas capacity, and you will see the break-even price is about 150 to 200 euro per ton. If you have high installed capacity of power to gas, the break-even price about 700 euro per ton. Other factors can make a powder gas to break even is to improve efficiency of powder gas. Or proof efficiency maybe is a technical efficiency from electricity to hydrogen, or the cost reduction of the device. And in this table, we show different efficiency improvement. Does it influence the carbon price break even for powder gas? And you can see that if the carbon price is about, if the efficiency level is about 80%, if the cost reduction 50%, and then we can have a break-even carbon price about 100 to 150 euro per ton. To sum up for the first project, if we have more renewable, then you will have a steeper price direction curve of electricity. Powder gas can flatten price direction curve. But if you take investment cost into account, the welfare effect powder gas are positive only in the scenario of high renewable and high industrial hydrogen demand, but some groups are harmed by powder gas, such as electricity consumers, gas-fired power plants, and electricity importers. However, if you include the welfare loss due to shifting gas consumption to more expensive hydrogen, powder gas doesn't lead to a positive welfare effect. To neutralize such a negative welfare effect, and we need a carbon price at least 150 to 200 euro per ton for low installation of powder gas, and a higher price about 700 euro per ton for high installation. In case there's a high hydrogen demand from other sectors like industry or transport, the economic value of electrolyzer to provide the flexibility is reduced, so you cannot realize two objects at the same time.
Okay, thank you, Xinyu. This is the first part of our presentation. I don't see any question in the Q&A box, so please feel free now to ask your question or make comments. Let's just wait a few seconds to see the first questions coming in. Shall I ask, can you briefly discuss the models we used? So give a bit more details about the models, I understand. That was indeed quite brief. So you can tell a bit more about,
Yeah, okay, so here the model we used is like a market equilibrium model. So basically, in each market, there's players in this market, a producer or consumer, and each one maximize their profit or utility. And we assume that it's a competitive market. Basically, no one has the influence on the price at the end. So everyone just assume the price in the market is given, then maximize their profit or utility. And since like this all markets connect by powder gas, so the price of each market will enter into the supply or demand function of another market. And in the end, we have like an equation system of 4 markets equilibrium. And at the end, we solve this to find the price for each market. Yeah, that's like an idea of the model, how it's solved.
Equations model. That's the equilibrium equations for the electricity market, the hydrogen certificate markets, and the electricity certificate markets. And these prices are used in the demand function and the supply functions. So they are solved for every hour simultaneously. And a model simulates, it's an hourly model for 1 year. Does this answer your question, Shirai? For more details, you can also look at our paper, Published in Energy Policy. Shirai asks, is it solved in GAMS? Yes, it's programmed in GAMS. I'm seeing a question by Machiel Lenoy. As I understand results, the price duration curve is quite important. Would the result change if application of renewables increases a lot? I would expect that the price duration curve of 2019 is not a good predictor for the price duration curve as of, say, 2035. Did you use different price duration curves as well? Xinyu, can you? So first question is, would the result change, so the price duration curve, if you have more renewables?
Yes, and you are right. If you have more renewables, the price duration curve of electricity will be quite different. But here, like our welfare comparison is based on the installed renewable in this market. And then we look at, given the high share of renewable already installed, if we add power to gas to the system, how does power to gas change the price of the market, also changes the welfare of the market. And in this way, all this welfare effect is based on what we have in the electricity market. So it shows only the welfare change.
But in this graph, so the low renewables reflects the current situation, or the situation 2019. And the orange one reflects the future situation where we have way more renewables installed, which is in line with the policy objectives of the Dutch government.
Yeah.
And we also adapted, by the way, the gas-fired capacity, because you may assume when there is more renewables, this will affect also investment incentives for gas-fired power plants. So we also have adapted the installed capacity for fossil fuel plants. I hope this answers your question, Machiel. Are there more questions? If not, then I propose to continue and move to the international spillover analysis. So this is still work in progress, but I believe we do have sufficient material to have some discussion with you. Xinyu, may I ask you to continue with this part of the presentation?
Yes. Okay, in the second project, we look at the spillover effect of national hydrogen policies. And as Machiel mentioned before, like each European country, for example, have a very ambitious target for hydrogen promotion. And then we want to know, okay, how does this one country's policy influence other countries? And here, what's a new element compared to the previous model? So in previous model, we only model Netherlands, one country, and with like a limited international trading. But right now we include more countries. We have Norway, Denmark, Netherlands, Germany, France, Austria, and Italy. So 7 countries connect by electricity market, and also we think, assume like they connect by hydrogen network. And same type of participants in each country, but there's more like producers of electricity in each country. And the electricity can be traded between neighboring countries and say above link between countries, and without cost, but with capacity constraint. This capacity constraint for trading is based on actual data. Hydrogen, right now, there's no such market exist. So we have to make some assumption. So we assume like any 2 countries in this network can trade hydrogen, but there's a transportation cost related to the distance. So we assume €3 per megawatt hour per 1,000 kilometers. And the capacity constraint for trading also limited, it's 100 megawatt. Okay, we focus on the policy of hydrogen. How does that influence other country's welfare. So we have two types of policy. One is subsidy to producers. So here, government want to promote green hydrogen, so they subsidize power to gas. The second type of policy is a subsidy to hydrogen consumers. So this subsidy doesn't distinguish whether you use blue or green hydrogen. So if you consume hydrogen, you will get a subsidy. And how do we determine the subsidy level? And in our model, we say, okay, when government decide how much to subsidize power to gas, they have a benchmark. The benchmark is to make power to gas as compatible as SMR, hydrogen producer. And basically, if you know the marginal cost of SMR and you know marginal cost power to gas in the current situation, there's a difference between them is how much you should subsidize power to gas, because right now power to gas is more expensive than SMR. And the same level of subsidy applied to hydrogen consumers. And we studied the spillover effect of our country's hydrogen policy. And in this ongoing project for today's presentation, we focus on the German hydrogen policy, and they subsidize power to gas producer or hydrogen consumer at 65 euro per megawatt hour.
Maybe to add, so we only include for SMR blue hydrogen. So SMR only consists of blue hydrogen where carbon is stored and captured. I believe we assume that 80% is captured, so only 20% is really emitted. But we do not have any gray hydrogen anymore because that is not really relevant in the future.
Okay, then we want to look at German hydrogen policy. How does that influence hydrogen price, electricity price, and the welfare? Okay, first look at the hydrogen price duration curve. Okay, in this case, you have 3 lines, and the baseline is no such hydrogen policy in Germany. And the red line, the Germany subsidized power to gas at the level 65 euro per megawatt. And you see that with the subsidy to power to gas, hydrogen price reduced a lot. But with the subsidy to hydrogen consumers in Germany, we hardly see any effect on the price of hydrogen. The reason is we assume the capacity of SMR is very big. In this sense, SMR is still the price setter in this market. So the subsidy to power to gas producer reduced hydrogen price, but subsidy to hydrogen consumer doesn't alter the hydrogen price too much.
Because the marginal cost remain the same of the price setter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then we look at the impact on electricity price. And here are still 3 scenarios: baseline, subsidy to power to gas, and subsidy to hydrogen consumers. And we see, okay, the price of electricity slightly increase if German government subsidize power to gas. And if they subsidize hydrogen consumer, not the producer, and then the effect is hardly to see. How does this policy influence the domestic welfare? Basically, here is a welfare effect in Germany. And we can see that for all kinds of electricity producers, they benefit from this policy. The reason is the subsidies to power to gas increase the electricity price, and then all producers of electricity benefit from that. But electricity consumers suffer a lot from that because of a higher electricity price. Obviously, hydrogen consumer will benefit from such policy, but you can see that governments have a huge expense on the subsidy, so the overall welfare effect is negative.
And for the subsidy to consumers?
Yeah, for subsidy to consumers, the electricity price increase a little bit, only if SMR has a higher cost than power-to-gas. This happens when the electricity price is quite low, right? And for that, like electricity price may increase a little bit because of extra hydrogen demand due to the subsidy. And then like all electricity producer benefit a little bit from that. And you also see like an electricity consumer suffer a little bit from that. And also hydrogen consumer benefit a lot because of this subsidy. And the overall effect also negative. Yeah, please notice right now we already include the carbon cost, because for all producer, if you emit carbon, you have to pay a price for that. So the carbon cost already calculated in this welfare calculation. Okay, so how does this German hydrogen policy influence all other countries? So here you can see that similar effect if you subsidize power-to-gas producer, and electricity price in other countries may go up a little bit, and then producers benefit from that, but the electricity consumer suffer a lot from that. And similarly, if you try to promote hydrogen in Germany, and then other country hydrogen consumer may benefit from that. And the subsidized to hydrogen consumer have almost the same effect as subsidized to power-to-gas producer, but at a very lower degree. Overall welfare effect in other countries is positive, and so they benefit from German subsidy policy. So we put all countries' welfare together. Also, we have international trading company for electricity, for hydrogen, for electricity green certificate consumer supplies, and hydrogen green certificate consumer supplies. We put it all together, we find that the overall welfare effect is negative. But if you compare the welfare change in other countries with the change in Germany, you will see that, okay, the effect most in Germany, the spillover effect is quite small. The reason for that, first is the current hydrogen production and consumption level are so low that a support policy hardly changes the electricity prices. In addition, we assume limited cross-border capacity for trading electricity and hydrogen. So this also help reduce the spillover effect. And finally, what's the overall effect if we increase the carbon price? And in the previous presentation, we assume the carbon price is about 25 euro per ton. And in this slide, we say, okay, if we change the carbon price to 125 ton, so it's 5 times of the current level, and what's the effect of the welfare? And you will see that in case of subsidies to power-to-gas, they produce more hydrogen right now, and which partially replace SMR. So this will lower the welfare loss. So in that sense, you will see that if the CO2 price is higher, then the subsidies to power-to-gas will be better than CO2 price is low.
Okay, Xinyu, thank you. So this was the end of the second part of the presentation. Are there any questions to us? Or comments, suggestions for improvements? I do not see any questions now, but please feel free to type your comment or question. So we have not answered the question we are going to answer is the question to what extent the locational flexibility also affects the value of the time in the end use flexibility. So this is still work in progress. That's what we want to do. To what extent the national policies spill over to other countries, and to what extent this will affect the value of flexibility regarding end users and the timing of use in electricity markets. Sheila asks, could you comment on the pros and cons of this kind of complex optimization models? Xinyu, to what extent is this a complex optimization model?
Yeah, I think that's like a trade-off. If you want to calculate the social welfare, right, and then you need to include like all important kind of players in this market and look at their response. And to simplify this analysis, we just assume, okay, everyone is like behave non-strategically. So you just accept the market price and then optimize what you want to do. For example, your profit maximization or your utility maximization. So in this way, you can get like a precise estimate of the welfare effect. That's like an advantage of this model. But the disadvantage of this model, especially if you have like the international market, and then the one country's policy, how does that influence the other country? The mechanism is not so straightforward because it can go through electricity market or hydrogen market or green certificate market. So basically the channel are more right now than to identify why you have such a result. You have to carefully study the mechanism and also try to understand the interaction of different mechanisms. I think for understanding the model, it's more challenging, but for estimation, maybe a little bit more precise. So that's what I think. Machiel, do you have any other comments on that?
Yes, I believe the pro of such analysis is that you really systematically analyze how the different behaviors of different parties interact. You have to make some assumptions, of course, and maybe this is a con of such an analysis. Assumption that everyone behaves rationally, tries to maximize its profits or utility. The markets are efficient and competitive. So you always have to make some assumptions. You also need to have some data which are stylized. So it's a stylized model. So that's a con, but I believe the strong benefit of such a model is that it enables you to have an integrated analysis of all the different aspects. For instance, looking at this graph, by having such a model, we are able to try to estimate the size of the economic effects, welfare effects for different stakeholders. What we see, for instance, that's what you also may expect, that producers of electricity by renewables or nuclear really benefit from higher prices, and the consumers pay this at the expense of consumers. This is what you may expect, but if this also comes out of a model, you get a better idea of the size, the magnitude of these effects. So it's just a tool for analysis, no more, no less. But I also would like to hear the view of others, how they view the value of making such microeconomic models actually, based on optimization behavior. Machiel asked a question, but before going to Machiel, Shirai says this may be hard to use the real options approach. The real options approach is mostly used for investments under uncertainty. In this model, this is a short-term model, so we do not use it indeed for making such investments analysis. That would make it even more complex. I agree. Michiel asks, or makes a comment, if I would summarize your results, it would be powder gas is economically and socially not attractive. Is that correct? Xinyu, what do you think? Is this correct?
Yeah, based on the model results of our first project, the answer is yes, it's not attractive. But I guess, as we said at the end of the presentation, it depends on how do we value the cost of carbon emission. And remember, in our model, we just assume that the price of CO2 is like 25 euro per ton, the current situation. But no, yeah, I think you have to.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Forward, yeah. And for slides, like show the break-even CO2 price. Yeah, and remember, like if in our presentation we show that, okay, if you have a higher carbon price, and then the power to gas can be economically and socially attractive. So I guess it totally depends on how do we value the damage of carbon emission to our society. And for that, probably there's a forever debate, right? How do we value that?
Yeah, but the measure for estimating the proper value for carbon emissions is to compare it with other options to reduce carbon emissions. And our estimate is that it can be maybe 700 euros in order to make powder gas break even from a social point of view. And the 700 euros is maybe quite high in comparison to many other options. So I indeed believe it's maybe not the first one you should take because of the relatively high cost compared to many other options for reducing carbon emissions. And then another question by Michiel is a follow-up. If so, why do we see so much attention for powder gas? Is that sound? So why do we see so much attention for powder gas? I'm looking for another graph. Because I believe the answer is, oh, sorry. The answer is there are many or several stakeholders who really benefit from policies to promote powder gas. Well, let's go to the last one. Sorry for this. So we have welfare effect for different stakeholders. Here. So if you have a policy like subsidies for powder gas producers, as is being considered in several countries, such a policy is really, really beneficial for everyone who produces electricity. Through renewables, offshore wind parks, solar parks, nuclear power plants. That's also what we see in all those who lobby, so to say, for hydrogen. There's really either from the electricity generation side or from the transportation side, while the electricity consumers are not really that active, not really that well represented in the debates. But from an overall social welfare point of view, we should really be a bit hesitant to spend so much money to promote hydrogen, because the cost of carbon are relatively high compared to many other options. Xinyu?
Yeah, I think you gave a perfect answer to that.
Anyone else? We have a few minutes left. Anyone else to continue all this or another issue? So what I already said, the major part of our presentation already has been published in Applied Energy, and the last one on the international spillover effects will be finished soon, this spring, and then submitted to a journal, and will be published as a working paper. And then we will also address the issue of the relationship between the three types of flexibility: locational, end-use, and time flexibility. I don't see any other question or comments coming in. So if no one doesn't want to add something, then I would like to end. Xinyu, anything to say? Final words?
Yeah, thanks for all participants, and your question quite interesting, and we want to think that more and in the future research.
Yes. Also, thanks for your participation and the questions, and looking forward to see you in person, maybe at an other IAEE conference this year.
IAEE would like to thank both of you for an outstanding webinar. This webinar will be available on IAEE's website for future download. If you're not a member of IAEE, we encourage you to join by visiting www.iaee.org. We thank you for attending, and I officially close this webinar.